Hi, this is Sandy with Sandy Says. Today I will be interviewing Amy Gamble, who is an American handball player. She competed in the women's tournament at the 1988 Summer Olympics. According to Ohio Valley Athletic Conference website, you are listed as the greatest female athlete of all time. You played basketball, track, and women's handball. You have won many awards, including the West Virginia Women's Basketball Player of the Year in 1982. You earned that award by helping John Marshall win the state class AAA championship. So you've really accomplished a lot, and it's an honor to meet you in person.
Oh, thank you so much.
As an Olympian, how did your diagnosis affect you in training and participating?
I think that's a great question, and that's one that I've really looked back on my journey of trying to understand when I was first impacted by bipolar disorder. And I would say that only looking back what I know, because I didn't have a diagnosis when I was training for the Olympics. And what I can tell you is that when my teammates were resting from usually around 8 hours of training per day, when I would have what would be defined as an episode, I would be out riding a bike 50 miles or running extra or playing racquetball for hours with the guys. And I didn't understand that that was hypomania or mania. And then at other times I might be a little bit harder to get out of bed, a little more down or depressed. And it didn't happen frequently, but it happened a few times that I can remember.
Wow, that must have been such an interesting transition, based on how much you were able to, you accomplished a lot after that also. But that must have really made a big difference. I know with myself, I was initially diagnosed bipolar, and then schizoaffective, and what is described as like what you were talking about, the highs and stuff like that, can make a really big difference when you're trying to do something. I know for myself, my onset came on when I was in graduate school. Mm-hmm. And that, requires a lot of time and work, and we'll get back to that a little bit later because I know you also have a master's. You have contributed to SARDAA's social media campaign called Workout Wednesdays. How has exercise helped you with your brain disorder and its symptoms?
I think before I had my first psychotic episode in 1999, that the extensive exercise that I was doing was helping me manage and keep it under control. I didn't have the high extreme levels of mania until after I had taken a medication for a physical health condition. And I think that understanding more about the brain now, that actually made my bipolar disorder worse, that kind of triggered the psychosis and set me on a pathway of having a much more severe condition. And fortunately for me, it didn't happen until I was a little bit older. So I was 35 when I had my first psychotic episode. And then I had probably 5 or 6 after that over a period of years. But once it seemed like once I had that, if I had to get control of it. And that was pretty significant and a long journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you had that is a pretty late onset. When you hear most people, I know, like there's early psychosis treatment centers, and it's for people like 15 to 25. I know for myself, I was 23. And maybe all the training you were doing and work really kept you in such good shape that's why there was such a late onset. Wow, that's awesome.
I do think that the exercise, that level, that extreme level, and even after I was done training for the Olympics and playing at the Olympics, that I continued sort of that high level of exercise, and that seemed to contain the mania. But I also think that it was related to having a medication that induced psychosis. And then that started kind of a slippery slope to more severe illness.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, just off the cuff, what is your favorite sport? It says you played basketball, track, and women's handball. Is it the handball that's your favorite sport, or?
I probably put it up there with a tie, probably team handball and basketball. I love watching the WNBA and women's college basketball, and I'm super interested in watching the Olympic handball teams, and it's exciting, and it's just a great sport. So those two are my favorite.
Okay, and you are busy as a mental health advocate. What is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing about mental health advocacy is being able to teach and speak and educate and inform other people, because that is something that I feel like I lacked. And I hope that when I go out and talk to audiences, that if I can reach one person, particularly when it comes to high school and college students, if one person can hear a message that it's okay to get help, and that can change the trajectory of their life, and then that is makes everything that I do worthwhile.
That's awesome. That's really good that you have that opportunity to be an advocate and speak. And like you were saying, for those ages, it's really interesting. I recently got promoted to Director of Community Engagement here at SARDAA. And, it's interesting seeing what all is available out there now. I think of in the late 90s when I got diagnosed versus, these early psychosis treatment centers, clubhouses, things like that, what SARDAA offers as support. I think if I had known about like SARDAA, which I didn't know about until maybe 2013, but it might have been a different experience, knowing people who understand what you go through.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Congratulations on your promotion, by the way.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I would agree with you that today, compared to when I was first diagnosed, first of all, the access to information is amazing. And secondly, there's so many advocacy organizations, including SARDAA, that's super helpful. And it's just a great, if you're going to have a mental illness, it's a horrible thing to have, but it's a good time to have it, because there's a lot of help out there.
Yeah, and what do you think of SARDAA's mission to reclassify schizophrenia as a neurological brain disorder?
I love SARDAA's mission. That's one of the reasons when you reached out to me about doing some things about exercise and some social media posts, that I really wanted to participate in that, because I think it's imperative that schizophrenia gets reclassified. I hope one day that bipolar disorder gets reclassified too, and other related psychotic disorders. I think there's enough evidence to show that these conditions are neurological conditions, and that will help people, hopefully, not be ashamed to get the help that they need, or it will help people get treatment much sooner and have that early intervention that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. It's interesting because I do book reviews also, and I understand you wrote a book. I'll have to read it sometime and review it. But I think there was a book. I think it's called The Great Pretender. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's, oh gosh, I don't remember the author's name. But anyway, but what it touched on was this idea that when they started shutting down the hospitals, an anti-psychiatry movement came about. Mm-hmm. And it's you understand that, yeah, there were conditions in the hospitals that weren't good, but to go to such an extreme, it's to me a really a shame, because there's a lot of really good work being done out there. And the reality is sometimes you need to be at a hospital.
Absolutely. I'm a proponent of really a little longer stays in hospital, especially when you have your first episode. When I had my first episode of psychosis, I was in the hospital for 5 days. And that was a disaster because within 30 days, I was back in the hospital again for 5 days. And then it was kind of survival of the fittest. So it wasn't until a tragic situation 8 years ago when I actually got 3 weeks in the hospital, which is certainly what I needed. And that got me on the right pathway. So if sometimes you're right, we need a little longer stays, and that would be helpful if we had that option.
Well, I know for me, I've been in the hospital only twice. I've been very fortunate. But the first time, I would just tell the psychiatrist, you need to get me out of here. I need to go find a job. And I was there for 14 days, and I was glad to get out of there. And the second time I told the psychiatrist, I said, look, I will never try to commit suicide again. I don't want to be in these places, which I was fortunate enough that the medicine helped me.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been an issue since then.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's an important message for people to know, that treatment does work, and that in my experience with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, all the serious mental illness, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, most people cannot live a functioning life, a quality life, a good quality life without medications and therapy and self-help strategies, at least somewhere along the journey. And medications for sure are what really, changed my life. The right medications changed my life.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was reading an article about, it was talking about the term recovery. Mm-hmm. And whether or not that's possible for everyone. And, for me, in the blue book that we use at the essay meetings, it describes it as being able to do something on a regular basis, which can mean anything. And I like that definition because it fits for anybody, for any situation. It just means you're doing stuff regularly. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the definition of recovery to you?
I think recovery means different things to everyone. The way that I look at it is that it has different pathways. I'm looking at it more of an overall wellness now. So I recovered from the episodes that I've had, and now I'm on a wellness journey where I'm looking at my mind, body, and spirit. I've got a good foundation with my mental health, my spiritual health, and now I'm working on getting my physical health back in good shape.
Yeah, that's really great. And as a person who works with a severe brain disorder, what tips can you give to people who are considering work or going back to school?
I would say that take it slow and have goals, and don't give up on yourself and your dreams, and keep working at it. Surround yourself with a good support system where people can help, particularly when you're just either first diagnosed or you're just getting on the right combination of medications and you're working through everything. Take it slow and be patient, because if you're patient in the beginning and you're working towards a goal, then you're going to have better opportunities for long-term success. So be patient with yourself and don't give up trying to reach the goals that you want.
And you also have a bachelor's and master's degree. How is that experience of going to school both times?
Well, the first time actually is when I started to struggle on the depressive side. I had my sophomore year. I was a basketball player, women's college basketball player at the University of Tennessee, playing for the legendary coach Pat Summitt. And I had a very severe depression, and I had suicidal thoughts. So I ended up leaving school and enrolling in a school closer to home. So I had some interruptions in my college because of my mental health. And looking back, team handball was my saving grace, my blessing, because about 6 or 8 months after that happened to me, then I got involved with team handball training on a full-time basis. And that probably saved my life.
And the master's degree?
I was working in corporate America at the time I was doing my master's, so I was juggling a lot and a lot of
Wow.
stress. And I worked for a very long time, about 16 years in corporate America, and had an opportunity to do a lot of things. But that was a high stress, and I didn't really know that I had bipolar disorder at that time. But looking back, I can see where the mania might have benefited me a little bit to be able to do so many things.
Yeah, and you just recently started a program, Speak Up for Mental Health. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I started a Facebook group, Speak Up for Mental Health, and I've been doing interviews of a variety of different people, many with lived experience. I've interviewed some people in the faith-based community talking about mental health and how they can help with people who are first diagnosed or family members, and being supportive in that. I'm going to be interviewing Lynn Nanos, who wrote Breakdown. She was working in the crisis intervention teams and still continues to do that. So she's coming up, and I've got a really great psychologist coming up and interviewing. So I'm excited about what I'm doing with that work. It seems to be reaching a lot of people, and people seem to learn a lot from those interviews.
That's awesome. And what is the name of the book that you wrote?
I wrote a book called Bipolar Disorder, My Biggest Competitor.
Oh, okay.
And I call it my biggest competitor because even though I made it to the Olympics, and that was certainly a challenge, and competed on a world stage with incredible competition, there was nothing that challenged me more than bipolar disorder. So for all the people who are listening who have bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or any other psychotic disorder, know that you are strong and capable of doing so much.
You also, okay, so you wrote this book and you also have a blog, and the blog is, I forget the name, I'm sorry.
It's Shedding Light on Mental Health.
Shedding Light on Mental Health.
Sheddinglightonmentalhealth.com. And today I actually wrote the first in a series I'm going to be doing called Wellness, Healing, and Harmony. And so it's really about my wellness journey, where I am now, and what people would call a recovery process. And for me, I'm calling it my wellness journey. And I'm going to be following along because with the medications that I was first taking, I ended up gaining a lot of weight from those. And now I'm working on losing that. So far I've been able to lose 30 pounds. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So just a little more to go, and I'll be really, really excited that I've gotten the whole package of mind, body, spirit.
Well, that is really a neat idea. I like that, trying to get everything in perspective. What tips can you give for time management?
I think I would go back to saying, if you have a to-do list in the morning or the night before, make a to-do list of what you want to accomplish. If you're looking at more long-term things, having a goal and thinking about what it's going to take to accomplish that goal. What are a few things I need to do to get that done? And then working towards that every day, and just having the discipline to complete those things. And that's really important, particularly when we're struggling with depression, and it's hard to get out of bed, and it's hard to take a shower, and it's hard to brush your teeth. So even the simple little things like, I need to get in and get a shower, or I need to brush my teeth tonight, or whatever those things may be, those can be really important as part of that journey towards getting to the goal you want to accomplish.
You are so right. And one of the hardest things I had to struggle with was coming to terms with doing things by baby steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I went on disability, it's like, how do I get off of disability? Yeah. Let me find the perfect job, and everything will just work out fine. And I think it's really interesting you talking about setting goals and things like that, because I think that we've come a long way to see that therapists can be really useful, even for people who have psychosis. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Definitely. I think that it's critically important that you find the right one that you can connect with, and that
Right.
they have a good understanding of serious mental illness. That because people who don't know about psychosis or don't know anything about bipolar or schizophrenia, psychosis, they can, not be helpful. So it's important to find a good fit, but I think I'm a big believer in therapy. It really helped me a lot. And I'm grateful for the tools that I have now that I can apply in my life every day.
Well, it's interesting because my therapist, who I first had after I went on disability, she was always like, no, you need to ease into the job and you need to do this and that. And it just seemed like, well, nobody's going to hire me for that type of thing, and well, I found a place where I've eased into the job and, been given more responsibilities and, just like she described. So, and I think that telehealth is so good too. I mean, unfortunately, what we're going through right now with the coronavirus is unfortunate, but I think the positive that's coming out of it is the use of telehealth.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great benefit for people who have access to the internet because it expands the possibilities for who you can interact with. I don't know that virtual will ever be the same as being in person, but it still has a lot of benefits to it and can be really helpful to make a connection with other people.
Yeah, I know for me, when I found SARDAA, it was kind of a relief because I did feel comfortable going to in-person support groups because of my paranoia. And so when I found SARDAA with their conference calls, I could just, stay in my home and call and took off some of the pressure. So, yeah.
I think that's a good point. I enjoy working from home. In most of my career, I always worked from home, so I'm kind of used to that. So this isn't that big of a difference for me. What is different is the technology with what we're using now with Zoom and being able to use sort of the FaceTime scenario things, and that's the video conferencing. That's really important. I did actually have a psychiatrist appointment with my doctor through virtual, and that was because of the pandemic, and that was fine. That was okay.
Well, I think I already felt comfortable with it because my therapist stayed with me when I moved to Louisiana. I was in Houston, and so until I could find a therapist, she just had me do it by phone. So I already felt, comfortable. And I know it's not for everybody. Not everybody feels comfortable with that. But so what's next? What are your plans in the future? You seem so goal-oriented.
That's true. Well, I'm looking at getting a certification in health and wellness coaching with a vision on being able to help people, particularly who have mental health conditions, because that's I have some peer coaching background. I have a lot of coaching background, actually, coaching in sports and a lot of coaching people, particularly family members most recently. So I'm looking forward to going down that pathway.
What did you coach?
I coached basketball and trained a lot of kids in basketball.
What ages?
From little kids, grade school, all the way up to high school kids.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm sure you enjoyed that.
I did. I actually did that along the course of my very long healing journey. That was one of my, I would call it my stops. So I was in corporate America for a very long time and then got very, very sick and didn't do a whole lot, but became an assistant coach and then for high school girls, and then started training kids. And then I got very sick again. And then I went to work as in retail, actually. So I went from a 6-figure income to working at a job at minimum wage at that time was $7.25. So it was interesting, but it was necessary for me to work to be where I am. So taking incremental steps and getting to where you want to be. Sometimes we have to do things that we might not necessarily want to do.
Well, and we always say, let the higher power lead, not us. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. The other thing that I've heard that I really like recently is that with when I'm also a certified career coach. I don't have that much experience with it, but I am certified. And I was talking to somebody about, applying for work, and the person said, and we were talking about gaps, and the person said, well, they're not hiring you for who you were. They're hiring you for who you are right now.
That's good. I like that.
I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
Okay, well, do you have any other tips or anything else you wanted to add?
I think the most important thing that I would say is for people is to never give up hope. Because I know from the very dark place that I came from, it was a long journey, but I made it. And I know that a lot of people can make it from wherever you are.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.